Singapore bids a final farewell today to its longest-serving president, Mr. S.R. Nathan, who died on Monday at the age of 92. His was a life of public service with distinction, serving the nation in various capacities before being elected president in 1999. In about an hour, a state funeral service will be held for Mr. Nathan. Right now, the casket is just about to leave Parliament House. I'm Dawn Tan, and over the next few hours, we'll bring you the funeral procession live, as well as the state funeral service. Sarah Gross joins us now from Parliament House, the starting point of the procession route. Sarah.
Hi, Dawn. Well, as you just mentioned, we are waiting now for the casket to leave Parliament House. Now, the casket was transferred from Parliament House by the coffin bearer party, which comprised army and police personnel, and they transferred the casket onto the gun carriage you can see behind me, this 25-pounder gun carriage. Now, this use of this ceremonial gun carriage is a practice that has been adopted by the British, and it is seen as a very dignified way of carrying a casket. Now, once the gun carriage does proceed to leave Parliament House, it will continue through the city centre to the University Cultural Centre. Early in the day, we also did see some diplomatic corps come and now, as you can see, the gun carriage is just about leaving Parliament House, and it will make its way through the city centre, passing various landmarks of significance to the late Mr. S.R. Nathan, before it arrives at the University Cultural Centre, where the funeral service will be held.
Sarah, thank you, Sarah, for that. You're watching live coverage now of the state funeral service for former President S.R. Nathan. From Parliament House, the cortege makes its way through the city centre. It will pass key landmarks in the civic district that represent significant moments in Mr. Nathan's career. Now, the old City Hall, which is now part of the National Gallery, this was the former office of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, where Mr. Nathan was a pioneer in Singapore's foreign service. It was also where, as president, Mr. Nathan reviewed the National Day Parade on the 3 occasions when it was staged at the Padang. Another significant landmark along the route, Fullerton Hotel, previously known as the Fullerton Building. It used to house the Marine Department, one of the predecessor organisations that merged to form the Maritime Port Authority. Mr. Nathan worked here as a welfare officer from 1956 till 1962. The cortege then passes NTUC Centre, the modern-day home of Singapore's labour movement. This was, of course, a movement which Mr. Nathan was intimately involved with during his early career. He worked at the Labour Research Unit between 1962 and 1966. The unit was an autonomous body created to help the NTUC with research and industrial negotiations. It was a time of industrial unrest and political strife, and Mr. Nathan helped NTUC overcome the challenge posed by pro-communist unions. From the city centre, the procession will pass through several residential neighbourhoods on its way to the University Cultural Centre. Channel News Asia's John Leong and Liana Othman are along that route. John's at NTUC Centre and Liana is at Alexandra. John, let's go to you first.
Donna, as you rightly pointed out, I'm here in front of NTUC Centre, and you can see already 200 people from NTUC's offices have come out in support of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan. The state funeral procession should be arriving any time now. All of them are dressed in black as a sign of mourning. You can also see they've erected a memorial board where it says, "Our brother in arms, workers' keeper and people's leader," and those three phrases quite rightly tell the whole story of Mr. Nathan's life as well as his career in the labour movement. This, of course, is one of 5 significant points along the funeral procession route. NTUC, like I said, was where he started his career at the Labour Research Unit, and I do believe... Sorry, I was mistaken. I assumed that the funeral procession would be coming very shortly. But like I said, he started at the Labour Research Unit in the fledgling NTUC. He helped counter pro-communist unions. Eventually he succeeded, and he helped NTUC become the main trade union body here in Singapore. Hundreds of others from offices around the business district are here as well. And they're all lining the pavement, in spite of the haze, it must be said, which has gotten quite bad as the morning has gone by. I've also spoken to some people from the labour movement who have been inspired by his life in the NTUC. Let's have a listen.
It was his sense of duty and dedication to Singapore and Singaporeans. In the course of my work, I think often we need reminders, remind ourselves that why are we doing what we do? Ultimately, who are the beneficiaries of the work that we do? I think it's very important to always, at some point, reset and then, redirect yourself towards, why it is that you do what you do and who ultimately is the beneficiary of what we do here at the Labour Movement.
NTUC Centre is, of course, the final significant landmark in the city before the state funeral procession makes its way to the University Cultural Centre at NUH. Along the way, it'll pass by the heartlands as well, including parts of Alexandra Road and Commonwealth Avenue. And it's back to you guys in the studio.
John, thank you for that. Now, one residential neighbourhood that the cortege will pass by is Alexandra, where Liana Othman is standing by. Liana.
Hi Don, yes, I'm standing here along the Ganges Avenue. Now from the city centre, as rightly pointed out, the casket of the late former President Mr. S.R. Nathan will pass by the heartlands here before it reaches the University Cultural Centre for the state funeral service. Now people have actually made time to come down here despite the haste to pay their last respects to the man who's been called the People's President, the man who started from humble beginnings, who rose to become Singapore's 6th and longest serving presidents. Now, from many of the tributes that we've heard over the past few days, like Prime Minister Hsien Loong's letter of condolence to the late Mr. S.R. Nathan's wife, which described him as a true son of Singapore who, I quote, always put his nation before self. It was clear that many saw Mr. Nathan as a compassionate and selfless leader. Now, even during his presidency, Mr. Nathan wanted to be close to the people, and many would remember seeing him during their morning walks at East Coast Park, and he always made time to say hello to them and to ask them how their day was. And it's these little gestures that truly won the hearts of Singaporeans. Now, as a trained social worker, Mr. Nathan was also a supporter of many charities, and in the year 2000 he set up the President's Challenge, which has so far raised more than $100 million and benefited hundreds of charities. Now the cortege will be passing by here anytime soon. The atmosphere here is somber as the crowd now await to pay their last respects to the late Mr. S.R. Nathan. Back to you, Dawn.
Liana, thank you. You're watching live pictures there of the state funeral procession of the late former president, Mr. S.R. Nathan, as it makes its way past one of the significant landmarks in the life and the work of the former president, the NTUC Centre. So early in his career, of course, between 1962 and 1965, Mr. Nathan served in the Labour Research Unit, a unit of the National Trades Union Congress. And it was during this time, it was a time of political strife and unrest for Singapore, a significant period in Singapore's history. He helped NTUC overcome the challenge that was posed by pro-communist unions to eventually become the country's main trade union movement. Over at the University Cultural Centre, the funeral service will be attended by Mr. Nathan's family members, President Tony Tan Keng Yam, Prime Minister Hsien Loong, Cabinet Ministers, Members of Parliament, the Judiciary and members of the Diplomatic Corps. Olivia Hsien joins us now live from UCC. Olivia, tell us what we can expect.
Yes, Dawn, here at the University Cultural Centre, we are awaiting the arrival of the cortege, and it is here where people will bid one final farewell to the late former President S.R. Nathan, who is Singapore's 6th and longest serving president. Now, we are expecting the cortege to arrive at about 2:45 p.m. and the funeral service to begin at around 3 p.m. Those invited, if you can see behind me, have been streaming into the hall, and they are really Singaporeans who come from all walks of life, backgrounds, races of different ages, the young, the old. There are students, healthcare workers, those from the social service, as well as how you mentioned, Dawn, cabinet ministers, members of parliament, and the Singapore president as well will be in attendance. Now, the master of ceremony for the funeral service is the head of civil service, Mr. Peter Ong. 7 eulogies will be presented by people who have been a part of Mr. Nathan's life at various stages, though many who have known, or all who have known Mr. Nathan personally for many years. Now, they include Prime Minister Hsien Loong, who has known Mr. Nathan for over 40 years in various capacities, as well as current Ambassador at Large, Professor Tommy Koh, who served with Mr. Nathan at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, Mr. Chun Singh, Labour Chief and Minister in the Prime Minister's office, will also be delivering a eulogy, and he first met Mr. Nathan when he was assigned to help in the setting up of the Institute of Defence and Strategic Studies. Now, once the eulogies are presented, a lone bugler will play, a minute of silence will also be observed, and after the funeral service, Mr. Nathan's casket will make its final journey to Mandai Crematorium for a private cremation service. Dawn?
Thank you, Olivia, for that update. We've just been speaking to Olivia Hsien there, who is standing by. Peter Ong, Head Civil Service Singapore, Hsien Loong, Prime Minister, Professor Tommy Koh, Ambassador at Large, Zainul Abidin Rasheed, Singapore's non-resident ambassador to Kuwait, Jennie Chua, former chairman of the Community Chest of Singapore, Ramaswamy Athappan, personal friend, and Chun Singh, Secretary General of the National Trades Union Congress, Minister in the Prime Minister's office, and Gopinath Pillai, Ambassador at Large. All of those will be delivering eulogies at Mr. S.R. Nathan's funeral. We're going to take you back to some live pictures of the state funeral procession of the former President, Mr. S.R. Nathan. Now, you will be looking at some pictures shortly, live pictures of our coverage. These were the pictures that were taken earlier from when Mr. Nathan's casket was transferred by personnel from the Singapore Armed Forces and the Singapore Police Force to the 25-pounder gun carriage just outside Parliament House. We're going to go now to live pictures at the University Cultural Centre, where the state funeral procession is headed for Mr. S.R. Nathan's state funeral service.
From University Cultural Centre.
And gathered here among the dignitaries we have members of the Singapore Cabinet, Earlier, at the Parliament House, its ceremonial entrance hall provided a dignified and fitting setting for the lying-in state of a man who was the head of state for 12 years.
He was Singapore's longest-serving president.
During the lying-in state over the past 1.5 days, relatives, former colleagues, foreign friends, past and present office holders in the government and public service, members of the public, they came to pay their last respects and to honor a man who brought Singaporeans together and made many friends for a fledgling nation on the world stage.
And many relived their personal encounters with Mr. Nathan, who has been described as a man with a sense of duty.
The coffin bearer party performing their special ceremonial duties, transferring the casket of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan onto the ceremonial 25-pounder gun carriage.
The use of the ceremonial gun carriage for state funerals is a practice inherited from the British. The gun carriage has been adopted as a dignified way to carry the casket and has become an integral part of state and military funerals. You are viewing images of the coffin bearer party transferring the body of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan onto the gun carriage. This ceremony was recorded a short while earlier at Parliament House in Singapore.
The gun carriage consists of 3 parts: the ceremonial Land Rover, the limber, and the ceremonial artillery gun carriage. The limber is a two-wheeled vehicle to which the gun carriage is attached. The gun carriage consists of a 25-pounder howitzer with a tempered glass case for the casket on top of it. The ceremonial gun carriage bearing the body of the former president then made its final journey through the city centre, escorted by police outriders and cars carrying family members. The procession of vehicles is presently making its way to the University Cultural Centre, where the state funeral service will be held. Along the route from Parliament House to the University Cultural Centre, special arrangements were made for the state funeral procession. The motorcade travelled from Parliament House through the Civic District, down Cross Street, Havelock Road, and Commonwealth Avenue towards the University Cultural Centre.
The state funeral procession, covering a distance of 15.5 kilometers and moving at a speed of about 25 kilometers per hour, will take approximately 40 minutes to reach University Cultural Centre from Parliament House. As the state funeral procession slowly makes its way, Singaporeans from all walks of life stand to bid a final farewell.
The state funeral procession passed by various landmarks that were closely associated with Mr. Nathan. City Hall, from where Mr. Nathan reviewed the country's National Day Parade in 2000, 2005 and 2010.
The present Raffles City. This is the site of the former Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where Mr. Nathan served under the then Minister for Foreign Affairs S. Rajaratnam from 1965 to 1971. Mr. Nathan later returned to the ministry in 1979 as its first permanent secretary. Soon after the end of World War II, Mr. Nathan was among the pioneer group of social work students at the University of Malaya. He graduated with a distinction in his diploma in social studies in 1954, after which he worked as a social service worker at the Singapore General Hospital. Accompanying the casket is the coffin bearer party led by Lieutenant Colonel Chu Sheng, Head Medical Logistics, Headquarters Medical Corps. The party comprises 9 senior officers from the Army, Navy, Air Force and the Singapore Police Force. The National Trades Union Congress building. Mr. S.R. Nathan worked at the Labour Research Unit from 1962 to 1965. The Labour Research Unit was a unit of the National Trades Union Congress.
Mr. Nathan's stint at the unit was during a time of industrial unrest and frequent strikes. The Labour Research Unit played a key role in helping unions that had broken away from pro-communist groups. It also helped the NTUC successfully overcome the challenges posed by pro-communist unions so that NTUC could become the country's main trade union body.
During his tenure as Director of the Security and Intelligence Division at the Ministry of Defence between 1971 and 1979, Mr. Nathan dealt with a number of terrorist acts in Singapore, including the hijacking of the Laju ferry in 1974.
In the Laju incident, Mr. Nathan negotiated with 4 hijackers from the Japanese Red Army and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine for the safe release of the ferry's crew. He then risked his life by leading a delegation that accompanied the hijackers on a flight to Kuwait as guarantors in exchange for the release of the hostages. For his role in the Laju incident, Mr. Nathan received the Pingat Jasa Gemilang Meritorious Service Medal from President Benjamin Henry Sheares in 1974.
A large part of Mr. S.R. Nathan's legacy can be traced to his work with the less fortunate, his rapport with citizens and various communities, and support of a diverse range of social causes. A man with a big heart for Singaporeans, Mr. Nathan founded the President's Challenge soon after taking office in 2000.
And in attendance at the University Cultural Centre, dignitaries, members of the Singapore Cabinet, foreign dignitaries in attendance as well. And we have in attendance the Scouts as well, a movement that Mr. S.R. Nathan was close when he was the Chief Scout from 1999 to 2011.
Among the foreign dignitaries, heads of mission in Singapore, ambassadors, and members of the diplomatic corps.
Nurses from Singapore General Hospital and staff who attended to the late Mr. S.R. Nathan after he suffered a stroke on July 31st.
Members of the President's Star Charity.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister.
Singapore Prime Minister Loong is now arriving at University Cultural Centre. And here, those who will be presenting the eulogies later in the ceremony are also gathered. And ordinary Singaporeans have also gathered together today to pay their last respects to Mr. S.R. Nathan. The state funeral procession is slowly making its way towards the University Cultural Centre. Across the country, state flags are being flown at half-mast as a mark of respect to Mr. Nathan, a man whom Singapore's first Prime Minister, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, once described as an indispensable man for all seasons. Today, the nation says goodbye to a public servant, diplomat, community worker, and above all, a son of Singapore. The line of honor have just taken up position, and also members of the Singapore Armed Forces Military Police Command are standing by. Members of the family of Mr. S.R. Nathan gathered among the dignitaries, members of the diplomatic corps, heads of missions, and ordinary Singaporeans.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President and Mrs. Mary Tan.
Singapore's President Tony Tan Keng Yam, accompanied by his wife, Mary Tan entering the University Cultural Centre. The state funeral procession is now approaching the University Cultural Centre.
The line of honor along the final stretch of the procession is mounted by 48 military policemen from the Singapore Armed Forces Military Police Command. As the procession passes, the line of honor will invert their rifles and bow their heads as a mark of respect. Known as resting on arms reversed, this signifies the highest form of respect the SAF can pay to the deceased.
The late Mr. S.R. Nathan was Singapore's 6th president. He took office on 18 August 1999 and held office for 2 terms until 27 August 2011, making him Singapore's longest-serving president. The pallbearers, Minister for National Development and Second Minister for Finance, Mr. Lawrence Wong, and Minister for the Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Masagos Zulkifli. And there are also representatives from the People's Association, Mr. Timothy D'Souza, Mr. Goh Chia Hao, Mr. Syed Ahmad bin Syed Yusuf Alaskov, Mr. Ramamurthy Krishnan. as well as 2 family members, Mr. Desmond Yong and Mr. Henry Goh. Prior to becoming president, the late Mr. S.R. Nathan held key positions in security and foreign affairs in the public service and chaired various companies and academic institutions. Coming from a humble background, he was proof that any Singaporean can aspire to the highest office in the land. The late Mr. S.R. Nathan was 92 years old when he died on Monday, August 22nd at 9:48 p.m., 3 weeks after suffering from a stroke.
The Line of Honor are now performing a special ceremony, inverting their rifles, bowing their heads as a mark of respect. Resting on arms reverse, it signifies the highest form of respect the Singapore Armed Forces can pay to the deceased. In a short while, the Singapore Armed Forces Military Band will play George Frederick Handel's The Dead March from Saul. Mrs. Nathan and members of the family will now take up position next to the pallbearers, forming the receiving party. And in a short while, the coffin bearer party will proceed to move the casket of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan into University Cultural Centre for the state funeral service.
When the Singapore flag covers the casket, it is placed such that the crescent and stars correspond with the position of the head and over the left shoulder of the body. The state flag is not allowed to touch the ground. It drapes the casket throughout the state funeral service. It serves as a mark of honor for one of Singapore's founding fathers. After removing the ceremonial cabs, officers forming the coffin bearer party will take their positions to receive the casket. Commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Chu Head Medical Logistics Headquarters Medical Corps, and members of the coffin bearer party. Casket of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan draped in the state flag, symbolizing the country's recognition of Mr. Nathan's contributions. cabinet, former colleagues, public servants, foreign dignitaries, family and friends, and some of those whose lives have been touched by Mr. Nathan have gathered at the University Cultural Centre for the funeral service that will begin shortly. Throughout his career and term as president, Mr. S.R. Nathan helped Singapore punch above its weight. Mr. Nathan helped build up the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as its Assistant Secretary, Deputy Secretary, and later on as First Permanent Secretary.
Singapore Symphony Orchestra is playing J.S. Bach's Air on the G string in Orchestral Suite No. 3 as the casket slowly makes its way onto the stage of University Cultural Centre for the funeral service.
Mr. Nathan's many contributions as a pioneer, a leader, a friend will be remembered at this service at the University Cultural Centre. The late Mr. S.R. Nathan represented Singapore at two of our most important foreign missions, Malaysia and the United States. During his 12-year term as president, Mr. Nathan made state visits to around 30 countries, including 8 ASEAN capitals.
The Singapore Symphony Orchestra is playing Samuel Barber's Adagio for Strings, providing a very appropriate setting for the funeral service that is about to begin.
Among the dignitaries and invited guests, President Tony Tan, Prime Minister Hsien Loong, Emeritus Senior Minister Goh Chok Tong, and family members of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan.
Speakers who will be presenting the eulogies in a short while during the funeral service are also present.
diplomatic corps, business leaders, representatives from groups closely associated with Mr. Nathan, such as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and National Trades Union Congress, and invited guests in attendance here at the University Cultural Centre.
The Singapore Symphony Orchestra performing Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings reaching a climax.
And the eulogy speakers, we have Professor Tommy Koh, Ambassador at Large, Mr. Zainul Abidin Rasheed, Ms. Jennie Chua, co-founder of B-Works, and she worked with the late Mr. S.R. Nathan on the community chest. Mr. Ramaswamy Athappan, he's a personal friend of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan, and he's also chairman and CEO of Fairfax Asia and CEO of First Capital Insurance. Mr. Gopinath Pillai, and he will also be giving the eulogy on behalf of the family. Chief Mourner and son of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan, Mr. Osthith Ramanathan, placing the photo of Mr. S.R. Nathan in position. And in a short while, the coffin bearer party will enter.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
coffin bearer party now proceeding to lay the casket onto the bier. In a short while, the Master of Ceremony to lead the state funeral, Peter Ho, Head of Civil Service. In a short while, the Master of Ceremony to lead the state funeral service, Peter Rong, Head of Civil Service, will commence the ceremonies.
Please be seated.
The Prime Minister will now deliver his eulogy.
The family of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan, Mr. President, distinguished guests, fellow Singaporeans. Today we are gathered to bid farewell to our former President, Mr. S.R. Nathan. On behalf of the government and the people of Singapore, I would like to convey our deepest condolences to Mrs. Nathan and her family. As one of the pioneer generation who lived through Singapore's most tumultuous period, Mr. Nathan witnessed many of the key events that shaped our nation. He not only had a front row seat, but was often an actor on stage. He played a significant and influential role in our nation building. From a most humble beginning, Mr. Nathan built a unique and illustrious public service career. He served in diverse fields, from social work and trade unions, to intelligence, diplomacy, journalism, academia, and finally as president. He played a leadership role in the Indian community, but he was also a president for all Singaporeans and cared deeply about racial and religious harmony. Quite apart from Mr. Nathan's remarkable career, the central and brightest thread in his life was his love for Umi, his wife. He first set eyes on her in 1942 when she was 13 and he was 18. After a courtship of 16 years, braving parental objections and a 2-year separation while Umi studied in Britain, they married in 1958. Their relationship spanned an astonishing 73 years, an inspiration to us all. S.R. loved and honored Umi all the days of his life. And she, in turn, was his anchor throughout his career, including the 12 years that he was president, when she supported him with grace, charm, and warmth. Mrs. Nathan, thank you very much. have had the honor and privilege of knowing and working with Mr. Nathan for over 40 years in different capacities. First as a young SAF officer when Mr. Nathan was Director of Security and Intelligence. Then as a minister when Mr. Nathan served as a diplomat, and later as Prime Minister when Mr. Nathan was President. When I think of Mr. Nathan, four things come to mind. First, he was a man who lived fully, seizing all that life had to offer. Second, he never gave up, no matter what the difficulties and the dangers. Nor did he indulge in self-pity or look to others for help. Instead, he faced challenges head-on with a steely resolve and ultimately prevailed. Third, he always did his best for Singapore, even at personal risk and sacrifice. Whatever the mission, he answered duty's call. Singapore could absolutely rely on his loyalty and dedication. Few have answered the nation's call so faithfully and so often, and served Singapore so well. Fourth, he had great personal integrity and commitment. It was his character as much as his intellect that led to his achievements in life and took him to the highest office in Singapore. The one incident that best epitomizes Mr. Nathan's qualities is the Laju incident. In 1974, 4 terrorists, 2 from the Japanese Red Army and 2 from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the PFLP, tried to blow up the Shell refinery on Pulau Bukom. They failed and hijacked the Laju, a ferry boat operating between Pulau Bukom and mainland Singapore. The government negotiated a deal with the terrorists to release their hostages in exchange for safe passage to the Middle East. Mr. Nathan, then Director of SID, risked his life to lead a team of 13 officials who accompanied the terrorists to Kuwait on a Japan Airlines aircraft. The terrorists had demanded their presence to guarantee safe passage. The Singapore officials were, in fact, hostages. Not many of today's generation know of the Laju incident. Those who do probably do not fully appreciate the magnitude of the decision that Mr. Nathan and the other 12 made. It took great physical and moral courage. In an interview towards the end of his term as president, Mr. Nathan was asked if he thought he would return alive. He said, "I was not sure." Because what awaited us at the other end was something uncertain. After Mr. Nathan retired from government in 1982, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew asked him to be the executive chairman of the Straits Times. This was new and uncharted territory for him. Eyed suspiciously as a former government man, he was hardly welcomed with open arms by the journalists. But his sincerity won them over. He spent 6 years there. In his gentle but effective manner, he helped the journalists understand our unique context as a young nation and gave them the support and the space to run a high-quality, successful newspaper. In 1988, Mr. Nathan became High Commissioner to Malaysia. He hosted me later that year when I went up to Kuala Lumpur to speak to the Harvard Club of Malaysia. My theme was the long-standing ties between Singapore and Malaysia. On reading my draft speech, Mr. Nathan shared with me his own personal example. After the war, he had served in the Public Works Department in Johor Bahru and earned a pension. And in 1988, long retired from the Malaysian civil service, he was still receiving 150 ringgit a month. I used this anecdote in my speech, which helped my Malaysian audience to warm to my message of goodwill. This was typical of Mr. Nathan. He had a knack for the small but telling personal anecdote that warmed you, made a personal connection, and illustrated a broader point. As an aside, I gather from his son, Osith, that he continued to receive this 150 ringgits per month until he passed away, and would tell Osith to file the payment slips carefully away, which Osith faithfully did. Later, Mr. Nathan was posted to Washington. He was ambassador when Singapore sentenced Michael Fay to caning for vandalism in 1994. The US media mounted an intense campaign against the caning. Singapore needed to get our point of view across. Mr. Nathan went on the talk show, Larry King Live. He was grilled, but defended our position with conviction and persuaded quite a few Americans that what Singapore was doing was not wrong. When Mr. Nathan returned from Washington in 1996, he established the Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies, now called the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies, or RSIS. It has established a name for itself internationally in strategic studies, research into extremist terrorism, and the study of multiracial societies. Mr. Nathan could have retired from public service into a more placid life in academia. But duty called again. Once again, he put country before self. He stood for president in 1999 and was elected. Mr. Nathan served 2 terms with dignity and distinction. He enjoyed meeting people. His approachable and caring manner put everyone at ease. He won the respect and affection of Singaporeans of all races and walks of life. He firmly believed in and was the epitome of multiracialism, attending events of all communities, making time for everyone, no matter who they were. When receiving foreign visitors at home, he was ever the gracious host who impressed with his knowledge of world affairs. Overseas, he represented Singapore with aplomb. Reflecting his generous spirit, Mr. Nathan started the President's Challenge to help the less fortunate. It raised more than $100 million over 12 years, reminding us that we all have a part in building a compassionate society. As Prime Minister, I worked with Mr. Nathan for a good 7 years. We met regularly and he gave me good advice. When Singapore encountered the global financial crisis, I went to him to seek his permission to draw $5 billion from the protected reserves to fund a resilience package of emergency economic measures and to back a guarantee of all bank deposits in Singapore. The guarantee called for earmarking $150 billion of these reserves. After careful consideration, Mr. Nathan approved the government's request. It enabled us to deal with the crisis decisively and to emerge from it largely unscathed. Mr. Nathan proved once again that he was capable of making tough decisions when the need arose. After Mr. Nathan retired as president, his age began to tell on him, but he stayed active. He was ever willing to share a lifetime of experience and wisdom with younger Singaporeans. He continued to engage and share his stories with civil servants, teachers and school leaders, as he had done when he was president. He put considerable effort into engaging students at the Singapore Management University, where he was a distinguished senior fellow. He attended events, tracked what was happening in Singapore and abroad, and kept up with old friends and their families. He was the moving spirit behind the biography of the late Mr. Ho Si Beng, an old comrade in arms from Union days, which was published last year. I kept in touch with Mr. Nathan regularly. Once in a while he would join me for lunch at the Istana, but I'm afraid to report that my food paled in comparison with what he used to serve me when I lunched with him when he was president. When I came across an article that I thought would interest him, I would send it to him. He made it a point always to reply in his beautiful hand, which remained steady all his life. In fact, he wrote to me recently when an old friend of his asked him to pass me a message. It was a 4-page note, setting out the matter, explaining the context, and offering to convey my response back to the friend. It could have passed as a staff paper. I thought how lucky he was to be so active and focused at 92. There are many lessons for us to learn from Mr. Nathan's life. He had hoped that Singaporeans, especially young Singaporeans, would draw a key lesson from his memoirs, which is not to give up. It is a precept that Mr. Nathan lived by. He overcame extremely trying circumstances in his childhood and rose in the public service through grit, determination, and ability, guided by a deep and abiding sense of duty. He put heart and soul into every task assigned to him, including the highest office in the land. Time and again, he placed nation before self. Quietly and without fuss, he gave his best years and more to Singapore. It is with great sorrow today that we bid farewell to one of Singapore's greatest sons.
Professor Tomiko, Ambassador at Large, will now deliver his eulogy.
I have the honor to speak on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Singapore Foreign Service. Mr. Nathan had played a key role in the founding of both institutions. He joined MFA in December 1965 and helped our first Foreign Minister, Mr. Rajaratnam, to set up the ministry. He would leave MFA in 1978 to take on another important assignment. He returned to MFA in 1978 as our first permanent secretary. The then Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, gave him an ultimatum: transform MFA in 2 short years into a first-class outfit, or he will close it down and make it a part of the Prime Minister's office. It must have seemed like a mission impossible. I had known Mr. Nathan and worked closely with him since 1968. I regard him as my mentor and my comrade. In my eulogy, I will focus on his 3 enduring contributions. First, Mr. Nathan succeeded in transforming our foreign ministry in the short span of 2 years from no class to first class. As we all know, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew had very high standards. He made no allowance for the fact that we were a new ministry and that we were all learning on the job. He demanded that the output of our ministry should match the high standard of the output of the centuries-old British Foreign Office. Undaunted by the challenge, Mr. Nathan, with his never say die, can-do spirit, recruited some bright young officers to join him. He demanded discipline, hard work, and competence. Most of all, he demanded loyalty and dedication to duty. However, behind the tough exterior was a warm, kind, and loyal heart. A few months ago, he invited a group of these bright young officers, now grown old, to join him for lunch. He wanted to thank them for having helped him to succeed in his mission impossible, and to explain why he was such a demanding boss. It was a poignant occasion because we knew in our hearts that this would be the last reunion with the boss. Because of the strong foundation that he had laid, the Singapore Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Singapore Foreign Service are considered among the best in the world. Second, he taught us to be courageous and to defend Singapore's interests without fear or hesitation. As the Prime Minister has said, Mr. Nathan was himself a courageous man, as we saw in his heroic role in the Laju incident. He was our ambassador in Washington at a difficult time. The Michael Fay affair erupted during his watch. My American friends have told me how much they admired the calm and rational way in which he defended Singapore against vicious attacks. He held high the flag of Singapore. Because of his example and precept, although Singapore is a small country, it is a country which cannot be bullied by other countries, not even the major powers. One of the principles of our foreign policy is that Singapore will stand up for its national interests against any foe, big or small. Third, Mr. Nathan represented Singapore with great distinction as our High Commissioner to Malaysia and our Ambassador to the United States. However, his most important diplomatic role was as our 6th President. During his 12-year tenure, he visited more countries than all his predecessors combined. And here I must thank Mrs. Nathan for having accompanied him on all those exhausting visits. Through these state visits, Mr. Nathan strengthened our link with other countries, helped to expand our political and economic space, opened the door for economic opportunities for our business and industry. He had a flair for dealing with foreign leaders and foreign friends. Perhaps because of his training in social work, he had the ability to establish rapport with other people and to put them at ease. Mrs. Nathan will agree that Mr. Nathan had the memory of an elephant, and he could remember people he had met and befriended in his previous assignment, no matter how long ago those took place. He was able to convert his huge global network of friends into a global network of friends of Singapore. I shall conclude. Mr. Nathan will always be remembered as one one of the founders of our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our Foreign Service. Our success today is due to the strong foundation that he, Mr. Rajaratnam, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, and other pioneers had laid. He taught us to be courageous and to be fearless in defending the national interests of Singapore. Mr. S.R. Nathan was truly our super ambassador to the world.
Mr. Zainul Abidin, who worked with the late Mr. Nathan in the Straits Times Press, will now deliver his eulogy.
I'll speak in Malay. Ramai di antara kita,
many of us knew the late Mr. S.R. Nathan.
ada secara pribadi.
Some knew him personally.
Biografi beliau
His biography tells of how,
bagaimana
from
dari latar
a humble
belakang yang
background,
serba kekurangan, beliau
he
mendaki
rose
hingga
to
jawatan
the highest
tertinggi di
office
Singapura.
in the land.
Menjadi ahli kesatuan sekerja,
He was
menjadi
a
pegawai
unionist,
awam,
a public
menjadi
official,
duta,
an
dan
ambassador,
akhirnya menjadi
and finally
Presiden Singapura
the sixth president
yang
of
ke-6.
Singapore.
Dari kecil lagi,
Since he was
beliau
young,
mempunyai azam untuk
he had a
menghadapi cabaran dunia
determination
dan
to face
mencorak
the challenges of the
kehidupan
world and determine for himself his
Saya
life
percaya
journey.
anda semua sedia maklum akan
I believe that
kejayaan
all of you are
kehidupannya
aware of his life
dan
successes.
beliau selalu berkorban untuk
He was
orang di
filled
sekelilingnya
with the desire
dan
to sacrifice
negara
for
yang
the people
tercinta.
around him
Pengorbanan
and his
beliau
beloved nation.
yang amat berkesan
His most
ialah
poignant
apabila
sacrifice
beliau
was when he
mempertahankan,
put his life on the line,
mempertaruhkan nyawanya
put
dalam
his life
insiden
on the
dari
line
Laju
during the
pada
Laju
Januari
incident in January 1974.
Hadirin sekalian,
Distinguished
di
guests,
sini saya ingin
I would like
berkongsi
to
beberapa
share
pengalaman
a
pribadi
few
saya
personal
bersama
experiences
Encik
I had
Nathan sepanjang
with Mr.
persahabatan
Nathan
kami
through
yang
the years of
bertahun-tahun
our
lamanya.
friendship.
Pertama kali saya mengenali beliau ialah
I
pada
first came to know him
awal
in the
80-an.
early
Ketika
1980s,
saya berusia
when I was
34 tahun.
34 years old.
Pada masa itu, beliau
He
baru
had
dilantik
just been
menjadi
appointed
pengerusi
executive chairman of the Straits Times
dan
Press,
saya memegang jawatan
and
editor Berita Harian.
I was the editor of Berita
Saya
Harian.
masih mentah
I
dalam
was still
kerjaan.
raw in the industry.
Waktu itu saya sering
At that
bertemu
time,
Encik Nathan.
I
Dalam
often met
kesempatan
Mr. Nathan,
saya
and
mendapat
it
tunjuk
was
ajar
at these
beliau
opportunities
langsung
that I received
mengenai hal-hal
guidance
di luar
from him
bidang
indirectly
kewartawanan.
on matters outside
Terutama
of
dalam
journalism,
memahami fitrah
especially in understanding
manusia
human
dan
nature
berbagai-bagai
and
aspek pembangunan
various
negara
aspects of
dan masyarakat.
national and community
Itu merupakan
development.
ilmu yang secara
It was
langsung tidak
knowledge
terdapat
that was
di sekolah
not
kewartawanan.
directly available in journalism school. Mr. Nathan's network of friends from his MINDEF and MFA or Ministry of Foreign Affairs days proved a boon when I was associate editor of the Straits Times. I was given the responsibility of setting up the paper's ASEAN desk. The opportunities I had to accompany him on his visits to ASEAN capitals and to meet his former contacts in and outside of government had helped the Straits Times make inroads in the region. When Mr. Nathan became president, I was in MFA. I accompanied him on his visits to many countries in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, including Kuwait. As someone who was directly involved in the Laju incident, which had ended in Kuwait, his visit helped to further strengthen the ties between both countries. Mr. Nathan was an extraordinary man. He walked with kings, sultans, emirs, presidents and prime ministers, but in a special way, he retained the simple and ordinary in him. He was always his humble, ordinary self with all of us. Mr. Nathan was very much a man after our hearts. Distinguished guests, I would be candid in saying Mr. Nathan was someone who was very concerned about the Malay community affairs. When I was chairman of the Malay Heritage Foundation, Mr. Nathan was able to raise $300,000 in funds with just one lunch to finance the cost of publishing a book on Malay heritage. We all know Mr. Nathan's role in making the President's Challenge a success, raising more than $100 million for charity over 12 years. One of Mr. Nathan's commendable traits is his respect for his friends. Among his close friends was the late Haji Ridwan Dhafir, who was once a director of trade. Pak Wan, as he was fondly called, was a former president of the Islamic Religious Council, MUIS, and chief executive officer of Mendaki. Mr. Nathan personally launched the biography of his old friend, Mr. Ridwan Dhafir, in appreciation of his achievements and contributions to Singapore. Mr. Nathan also took a personal interest in the Nagur Dargah Monument Project, which is now the Indian Muslim Heritage Center. Truly, his concerns transcended race and religion. Last May, despite his ailing health, Mr. Nathan kindly attended the launch of the book Majulah, 50 Years of the Malay Muslim in Singapore. He later expressed his pleasure, how pleased he was that the book had recorded the challenges and contributions of the Malay Muslim community since Singapore's independence. He had always wanted Malays to see themselves as modern and fully integrated Singaporeans instead of just as a minority community. The last time I had the opportunity to chat with him was in early July. For nearly an hour, at SGH we talked about Malay community matters, a topic that was close to his heart. For me personally, I will not forget his love for food. It brought us closer as friends.
Sebut saja nasi biryani, nasi lemak, lebih-lebih lagi durian.
Just mention biryani, nasi lemak, and of course durian, and a smile will light up his face.
Saya ingat akan mengingati hari-hari di mana kami bersembang sambil minum teh.
I will long remember the days when we would have a chat while having tea and enjoying durian puffs at his residence in Ceylon Road while being served murukku by Mrs. Nathan. He was usually casually attired in his sarong plikat at home. Dear Mr. Nathan, you will always be remembered. You have had more than a full life. You have achieved what others would not even have dared to dream of. You were a caring head of the family. You were a highly dedicated top civil servant. You were a world-class diplomat. You were a president loved by the people. And most importantly to me, you were a true friend. Notwithstanding the long chats that we've had about things touching on multiculturalism, religion, culture, heritage, leadership, and the contributions of the Malay-Muslim community to Singapore, I wish I had more time with you.
Kita semua akan sentiasa mengenang anda.
We will always remember you.
Pemergian anda
Your departure
ibarat api lilin
is
yang
like a
padam.
light that has been extinguished.
Tapi percayalah,
But rest assured, Mr. Nathan,
semangat anda dan
your
rasa
spirit
cinta
and love
anda
for
terhadap
Singapore
Singapura
will
akan terus bersinar
shine on
dalam
in
kehidupan
our
kami.
lives.
Rest in peace, Mr. S.R. Nathan.
Rest in peace, Mr. S.R. Nathan.
Nathan Shansheng, Ching Nin, An Si Pa. Tiru S.R. Nathan, Awargalai, Ungul Atma, Santi, Adaya Vendam. Encik S.R. Nathan,
Mr. S.R.
selamat
Nathan,
bersemadi.
rest in peace.
Ms. Jennie Chua, who worked with the late Mr. Nathan on the community chest, will now deliver her eulogy.
Mr. Nathan loved to write letters, handwritten ones, not emails. Many of his friends would have received these personalized notes from him, written with instrument of his choice, a $2.20 Uniball Signal black broad-tip pen. In his characteristic cursive style, handwriting, always dated and signed. Like the man himself, his words were warm, encouraging, heartfelt, and inspiring. Such were also the defining qualities which Mr. Nathan brought to the social service sector. Today, as we give thanks for his life, allow me to share with you a few of his letters from the heart. Mr. Nathan was President of Singapore He could have simply lent his office to various causes. But he was so committed to the social service sector that he wanted to be directly involved in our work. As Patron-in-Chief of the National Council of Social Service and the Community Chest, Mr. Nathan was present at and participated in many charity events, from school fundraising functions to large corporate occasions. He was there to personally engage beneficiaries, donors, and the volunteer welfare organizations. He would make every effort to speak to as many people as possible, and was so obliging in acceding to requests for photo taking that a short walk to the door as he departed an event could take up to 45 minutes. Organizing his menu was a bit simpler. He doesn't care about the items as long as the main course is mee rebus or mee goreng. Sorry, Mrs. Nathan, mee goreng. At one of the charity gala dinners organized by the Community Chest, Mr. Nathan noticed how the organizing committee and I had to deal with a couple of difficult donors. I was tired and probably showed it. The next morning, I received a handwritten note from him. A line read, "Some of us have greater burdens to bear. I know it was not easy for you." I'm certain I was not the only one who received such a letter. And mind you, it was never a standard template. No two letters from him were the same. Someone told me Mr. Nathan doesn't even plagiarize himself. Another letter in 2010 was to G.K. Goh, the then chairman of the National Museum of Singapore. The letter was sent out the day after the successful launch of Presidential Presents. Mr. Nathan once again had the working team in mind. He wrote, and I quote, "I must compliment all the museum officials for a well laid out and tastefully presented display. Kindly convey to them my appreciation, and in particular to Iskandar Maidin for enlightening me about each item." Of course, one cannot talk about Mr. Nathan's contribution to the social service sector without frequently mentioning President's Challenge, which he started in the year 2000. The largest annual community-driven movement in Singapore, it has raised over 100 million to help needy children, families, the elderly, the disabled, and many others. Mr. Nathan worked hard to make a success of President's Challenge. He called upon all his contacts. If he knew you could contribute in one way or another, he would call you. What started out as a week-long affair eventually became a year-long campaign. Smaller charities and those who had difficulty raising funds were on his beneficiary list of President's Challenge. Mr. Nathan was a mentor to many of us in the social service sector. Ang Bilian, Director of Social Welfare in the Ministry of Social and Family Development, worked closely with Mr. Nathan when she was Chief Executive of the National Council of Social Service. Bilian published a book, What is Social Work?, in 2015. In a letter to Bilian, one can feel Mr. Nathan's strong passion for social service. "I also looked through your book," he wrote. which I think will be useful for those entering social work. Often, all we have is a bleeding heart and not knowing how and where to begin. This is especially so with the young, who are all attracted to the idea of doing good. Over the years, Mr. Nathan became convinced that Singapore corporations have a critical role to play in fostering a spirit of giving. Mr. Nathan himself had received a bursary from Shell to study at a university. Retiring from the presidency gave him more time to devote to involving corporations in social work. He was invited by many organizations to sit on their advisory boards, but he accepted one offer. As chairman of Capital Land Hope Foundation, the philanthropic arm of Capital Land. Just a month ago, on July 26, Mr. Nathan wrote a letter to Tan Bee-ling, General Manager of Hope Foundation. The letter accompanied a framed photograph of 3 women in traditional dress, carrying goods with shoulder poles and crossing a vast span of sand dunes. This stunning picture was taken by Desmond Yong, Mr. Nathan's devoted special assistant. Mr. Nathan wrote in his letter, "I have found a picture that depicts what we strive to achieve through Hope Foundation. It is my interpretation of this picture." Mr. Nathan had the text of his interpretation engraved on the picture frame. It very much sums up his mission to promote social service in Singapore. The engraving read, "The desert is barren, dunes of sands in the horizon. United we struggle together, for there is hope." Mr. Nathan was my friend and mentor for 47 years. I first met him in 1969 when I was a student at Cornell University. There were 3 Singaporeans at the university then, 1969-1970, Goh Ken Chee, Ho Ming Fong, and me. After attending a conference at New York City, he took a Greyhound bus to Ithaca, where Cornell is located, a journey of some 6 to 7 hours. I cooked curry chicken for Mr. Nathan, made from evaporated milk and curry powder. He stayed over at a local inn and left the next morning to return to New York City to catch flights home. He had just come to see for himself how we were doing and to pass messages to us from our families. We kept in contact over the years since then, meeting mostly over meals, official banquets, fundraising events, birthday dinners, and most treasured of all, Mirubush lunches at Ceylon Road. In fact, I had been looking forward to our next lunch on 18th of August, but he was admitted to hospital before then. At a fundraising event a decade ago, I had expressed admiration for a beautiful sari Mrs. Nathan was wearing. I had noted that sari material could be made into nice jackets and dresses. A few weeks later, a parcel arrived from the Istana containing an exquisite deep brown sari with silver white flowers. The accompanying handwritten note said that the sari was from Mrs. Nathan. The jacket I'm wearing today is made from that sari. Thank you, Mr. Nathan, for your kindness and generosity, and for giving all of us in the social service space donors, caregivers, volunteers and beneficiaries, courage and hope. Goodbye, sir. May you rest in peace. We will miss you, but we'll always celebrate your life and take care of Mrs. Nathan.
Mr. R. Athappan, a personal friend of the late Mr. Nathan, will now deliver his eulogy.
I will speak in Tamil. மாண்புமிகு திரு எஸ்.ஆர். நாதன் அவர்களோடு 16 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு முன் எனக்கு ஏற்பட்ட அனுபவம் தற்செயலானது. அது அவர் நமது நாட்டின் அதிபராக இருந்த காலகட்டத்தில் தினமும் காலை வேளையில் ஈஸ்ட் கோஸ்ட் பார்க்கில் நடைப்பயிற்சி மேற்கொண்டிருந்த போது நிகழ்ந்தது. காலை வேளைகளில் நடைப்பயிற்சி மேற்கொண்ட போது அவர் தாம் சந்திக்கும் மக்களிடம் கனிவன்புடனும்
While engaging in his early morning walks,
கவனத்துடனும் அவர்களது
he paid close attention to the everyday concerns of ordinary Singaporeans.
சிங்கப்பூரர்களின் அன்றாட பிரச்சனைகளில் அதிகம் கவனம்
He conversed and listened kindly, courteously and attentively to the concerns of people.
அவருடைய அறிமுகம் எனக்கு அவரை மேலும்
I feel very blessed to have had the opportunity to know him better over time.
திரு நாதன் அவர்களை அறிந்தவர்கள் வாழ்நாள் முழுவதும்
There is no doubt that those who knew Mr. Nathan will think fondly of him for a lifetime.
வாழ்க்கை சிறப்புமிக்க பல முக்கிய நிகழ்வுகள் இடம்பெற்ற ஒன்று.
Many incidents from Mr. Nathan's illustrious and eventful life are well known to the whole nation.
மற்றோரை விடுவிக்க தன்னையே பணயம் வைத்த
offering himself as hostage to free others. Who can forget the larger incident where he risked his own life?
மனித நேயத்தையும்
I would like to share with you
எனக்கு ஏற்பட்ட
3 incidents which highlight his humanity and eagerness to help others.
சென்ற மாதம்
experiences of myself.
இந்தியாவிலிருந்து ஒரு தொண்டூழிய குழுவைச் சேர்ந்த 4 பெண்கள்
On the night of 12 July 2016, a volunteer group of 4 women from India arrived on their motorbikes at the Singapore immigration checkpoint at the Causeway. This was the last leg of their trip on motorcycle around Asia, covering 10 nations and over 10,000 kilometers in 40 days to raise awareness against female feticide in India.
பயணத்தின் இறுதி பகுதியாகும். குடிநுழைவு சாவடியை வந்தடைந்த அவர்களை
officers at the immigration checkpoint
சிங்கப்பூருக்குள் நுழைய
did not
அனுமதிக்கவில்லை.
allow them to enter Singapore
ஏனெனில் அவர்களிடம்
because
சரியான
the
வாகன
women
காப்புறுதி இல்லை.
did not have proper vehicle insurance.
பெண்கள் குழுவில் உள்ள ஒருவருக்கு திரு நாதன் அவர்களை
One of the contacts of the bikers
அவருடன் தொடர்பு
happened to know Mr. Nathan,
திரு நாதன் அப்போது
and he contacted
மருத்துவமனையில்
the former president for help.
நேரம் கடந்த
Despite being hospitalized and the lateness of the hour,
என்னோடு தொடர்பு
Mr. Nathan telephoned me.
அந்த 4 பெண்கள் மோட்டார் சைக்கிள்களுக்கும்
He requested my assistance to help the bikers and their accompanying motor car to secure the required motor vehicle insurance immediately. If it could not be done immediately, they would have been forced to wait there till the next day. I arranged for them to get the relevant insurance certificates that very night itself. The second incident happened on 18 April this year. That is Mr. Nathan's handwritten letter to me, which he personally delivered then. Along with the letter, he gave me as a gift a statue of Vinayagar, another name for Lord Ganesh. His touching note said, Vinayagar, Lord Ganesha, will safeguard you from all ills. Lord Ganesha will shower you with many more successes. My days are somewhat numbered. I will be 92 in July. My heart is getting weaker by the day. Seeing you well and successful in your life is my only wish. He mentions such. This reflects the true love he showed those who have had the privilege of knowing him. Likewise, there are many others who have benefited from Mr. Nathan's love. He has deeply touched the hearts of all those who knew him. Finally, I would like to mention an incident which occurred in 2014. I had fallen ill during a business trip to India. On the advice of doctors, I delayed my return to Singapore by 2 weeks. Somehow, Mr. Nathan got wind of this and personally visited me at my residence on the way to his morning walk to inquire after me. He was 90 then. This reminded me of the following couplet from Tirukkural: The loveless to themselves belong alone. The loving men are others to the very whole. His demise saddens us all. I pray to the Almighty for his soul to rest in peace. I offer my heartfelt condolences to his family members at this time. I owe my sincere thanks to his family for the love and affection they have bestowed not only upon me, but on millions of Singaporeans. Mr. Nathan will always remain a priceless treasure in the memories of all of us. We are all so blessed to have been acquainted in one way or another with the life of this excellent great man. Thank you, Mr. Nathan.
Mr. Chun Secretary General of the National Trades Union Congress and Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, will now deliver his eulogy.
Today, I stand before you not to mourn the passing of Mr. Nathan, but to celebrate his life, to honor his contributions to Singapore, and most importantly, to give thanks. To give thanks to Mr. Nathan for planting the seeds in us younger Singaporeans to be better Singaporeans for a stronger Singapore. Let me continue in Mandarin.
I first got to know Mr. Naden in the year 1996. Mr. Naden had then just returned from the United States, having served as our ambassador there for 6 years. He had wanted to retire, but was invited by MINDEF to set up a new Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies, or IDSS. Our then Defense Minister, Dr. Tony Tan, assigned me to assist Mr. Naden. I was then just a young, inexperienced army officer. I had little idea then what a think tank was, how to set it up, or how to run it. So I actually knew very little about the whole matter. Mr. Naden taught me the first of many important lessons. He said, only the lack of imagination can set us back. He told me that he had never set up a think tank either. But don't worry. So long as you understand the mission and purpose, then fear not. And don't worry about how to complete it. He said, we are given a free hand. Even when we had no clue whatsoever, so long as we put in a concerted effort, as they said, 3 heads are better than 1, then we will figure it out together. Mr. Naden's working style was influenced by our pioneers, such as the late Dr. Goh Keng Swee. In 1962, when Mr. Naden joined the Labour Research Unit, the situation was the same as what I faced in 1996. At that time, the only mission given by Dr. Goh then was to fight for the welfare of our workers. As to how to get it done and what to do, were left entirely to Mr. Naden and the officials of the research unit. Just like the other members of our pioneer generation, armed with a sense of mission and fearing no hardship, Mr. Naden gradually built up Singapore one step at a time.
Saya kira mungkin bukan hanya jadi bukit, kita akan jadi gunung. Tapi bukan hanya untuk kita semua, tetapi untuk keturunan kita semua. 纳丹先生用人不疑，
Mr. Naden would trust people to execute the plan. So long as he have faith in the person, he will let him have a free hand. He was meticulous in all things he did, and he would never lock himself into dead ends. So with Mr. Naden, once we understood and embraced the mission, we never had to ask what our job scope was. We learned, like what the Cantonese people would say, you do everything. That was our specialties. So at the IDSS, Mr. Naden traveled around the world to find the best academy to join us. Leveraging on his extensive network, while I took care of the setting up of the facilities and in the process picking up countless important lessons. of my life. Sometimes I would lightheartedly say that in the old IDSS premise, I know the location of every electrical wall socket because we had planned and designed them. Well, in case you think Mr. Nathan had treated me just as an able subordinate staff, you cannot be more wrong. Mr. Nathan never treated me or my colleagues as subordinate staff. He had always treated all of us as members of his family. Even though I only served Mr. Nathan for a short period of time, but every year, during these family festive celebrations every year, he had never failed to invite me ever since. I made it a point to attend on each and every occasion unless I was overseas on duty. Every time when we went to his house, he would always ask in his fatherly way, how are you? How are your family? And so forth. He had never had the need to teach me how to care for others around me. Instead, he simply showed me how to do it through his actions. In 2011, I entered politics, and at the same year, Mr. Nathan retired as our president. One day, he asked to come to my office at the Ministry of Community, Youth and Sports to call me. I had a shock. I very rarely not listen to Mr. Nathan, but at that time I persistently said, no. On the phone, I told Mr. Nathan, no, it was not right. When I eventually called on Mr. Nathan at his home, he held my hands. He told me that he wanted to call on me was to affirm me, and also an affirmation of the office of the minister. He went on to say that he was no longer the president, but just a normal citizen. So it was only right, as a matter of protocol, that he called on me because I was a minister. Having heard what he said, I grew even more respectful of him. I firmly held his hands and said, Mr. Nathan, you will always be my mentor, and you are always a president whom all Singaporeans would remember in our hearts. From this episode, I learned yet another important lesson from Mr. Nathan. His humility and his magnanimity of spirit to help the younger generation is something that we should learn. When I joined NTUC in 2015, Mr. Nathan was again by my side. He unreservedly shared with me his experience and observations about the labor movement. He also shaped our mission and vision for today's labor movement. And I must thank him for his inspiration to me. Let me continue in English.
Just this May, despite his health and busy schedule, Mr. Nathan made time to return to NTUC to share with us his perspective. I can still vividly remember his words that night. He was passionate as usual. He was incisive as always. He first asked us if we were just unionists or were we a labor movement. Were we unionists or were we a labor movement? He reminded us to stay focused as a labor movement that not only takes care of our working people, but also our country, Singapore. That the Singapore labor movement must possess that special ingredient that helps create that unique competitive advantage for Singapore, for our people to continue to see improvement in our lives and to give hope to our next generation for a better future. Mr. Nathan then asked us a second question. He asked, would we be our brother's keeper? Would we be our sister's keeper? Will we take care of each other regardless, in spite of? Yes, we will, Mr. Nathan. We will take care of each other. We will take care of Singapore. Your pioneer generation toiled with blood, sweat and tears to give us the chance to be called Singaporeans. We, the younger generation, will build upon it. You once said, and I quote, "The trade union movement is the place where the small man rises." The small man is important. Don't take him for granted. The trade union movement gave me the courage to stand up and speak to big people without fear. Yes, Mr. Nathan, the labor movement will always remember your words. You show us the courage to stand up and speak without fear as a people. You show us the way to inspire people with a vision and unleash their potential to achieve. You show us how to take care of fellow Singaporeans, in particular, the most vulnerable. Most importantly, you show us the way to live the dream of being a true Singaporean. That while we may not be able to claim a common ancestry, race, language, or religion, that we can always be united by a common future, a set of shared values, and a unity of purpose. That as you have taught us and showed us, that if each of us live our life to the fullest, doing justice to our blessings as individuals, then there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that can ever stop us from achieving our Singapore dream as a team. A dream to defy the odds of history, for us to be sovereign and free, to be called Singaporeans forevermore. Thank you, Mr. Nathan, for blessing us with your life's contributions. Thank you, Mrs. Nathan and family, for sharing Mr. Nathan with us all. Blessed are us all whom you have touched. Majulah, Singapura.
Mr. Gopinath Pillai, a family friend of the late Mr. Nathan, will now deliver his eulogy.
While I'm honored to be speaking today about Mr. Nathan, I'm also somewhat troubled. What can I say that would do justice to a friend and mentor of almost 4 decades? How can I adequately put into words the loss I feel without my emotions getting the better of me? I first heard of Mr. Nathan in the late 1950s when I was an undergraduate. But I got to know him well only in the 1980s when he was appointed chairman of the Hindu Endowment Board. The first thing I noticed about him was that, like Winston Churchill, he did not think doing your best was good enough. Doing what was required was more important. His priorities for the endowment board were clear. He wanted to get the accounts up to date because we were handling money from a large number of devotees. He brought in an excellent finance member who not only cleaned up the accounts but also instituted strict measures to ensure there were no leakages. Mr. Nathan was also mindful of religious sensitivities. Once every 12 years, large amounts are spent to refresh Hindu temples. The belief is that this is necessary to maintain the temple's divine powers. When I suggested discontinuing this practice, Mr. Nathan advised me not to change established traditions. He reminded me that our task was to run an efficient system, not to tinker with people's beliefs. Once I asked him why he had agreed to be chairman of the endowment board. He explained that in the political arena, there were credible Indian ministers who had won the respect of all races. He thought the various Indian institutions should also be credible. It was incumbent on those who have succeeded to be involved in the running of community organizations. He felt very strongly that those who have done well should not cut themselves off from their respective communities. This sense of giving back to society was always paramount in Mr. Nathan's mind. He was one of the founders of SINDA and believed firmly that every child, irrespective of race or religion, should have the opportunity to develop to his full potential. He spearheaded many initiatives at SINDA, which have led to the betterment of many lives. Mr. Nathan looked at everything from a national perspective. When I was appointed chairman of the Institute of South Asian Studies, ISAS at NUS, he spoke to me about ISAS's role. While Singapore and India enjoyed friendly relations, they did not have, in his view, a deep understanding of each other. His advice to me was, you should champion Singapore in India and India in Singapore. That way you can help to increase each country's understanding of the other. ISAS has tried to live up to his expectations. Mr. Nathan was a man of foresight. He had long believed that the diaspora from various South Asian countries had much in common, and there was much potential and value in bringing them together in a neutral venue. He felt Singapore was one such natural hub for the global South Asian diaspora. He was the driving force behind the publication of the Encyclopedia of the Indian Diaspora in 2006, the most comprehensive account of the global Indian diaspora even today. To show our deep gratitude for his immense contribution, the South Asian Diaspora Convention last July conferred on him the Outstanding Member of the South Asian Diaspora Award. Mr. Nathan has received many accolades and honors throughout his distinguished career. But for many of us who knew him before he occupied the highest office of the land, what struck us most about him was his common touch. As Kipling says, walk with kings, nor lose the common touch. When he was president, he showed real interest in the Singaporeans he met and endeared himself to them. He was warm and friendly and would not leave any function he attended without taking photographs with the employees of that establishment. I would venture to say that almost half of the households in Singapore would have one photograph of him with a member of the family. There was also a lighter side to Mr. Nathan. He loved to watch Tamil and Malayalam movies. He appreciated both classical Carnatic music and light film songs. The song that we heard at the beginning of this proceedings, Tanjavur Manneduthu, was a particular favorite of his. It speaks volume of the man that this Tamil song resonated with him precisely because he heard it in a tale of Singapore. How from many we became one. How despite our different traditions, cultures, religions, we could be one people. When news broke that he was critically ill in hospital and the newspapers published it, a lady who had once worked for us as a domestic helper called my wife from Kumbakonam, a remote town in Tamil Nadu, to inquire about Mr. Nathan's condition and to say she was praying for him. He made a deep and lasting impression on her, as he had on all those who came in contact with him. Another person who contacted me was Mr. Tan Guan Hing, a visually handicapped writer, one whose books Mr. Nathan launched in 2001. Mr. Nathan had also written a foreword to Guan Hing's latest book, Pioneering Disabled and the Able. Guan Hing accompanied me and my wife to pay the last respects at the family's residence. My wife and I have traveled several times with Mr. Nathan and his family. On those trips, we saw a side of Mr. Nathan that few outside would have seen. He was above all a family man. The childhood love between him and Mrs. Nathan seemed to have grown with the passage of time. Their marriage is an extraordinary tale of devotion and love that inspires us all. The family they created with their children, Jyotika, Osit, as well as Gaeng and Hui, and grandchildren, Monisha, Kiron, and Keshin. They are a closely knit family. Mr. Nathan lives on in them as he does in our hearts. At this time of sorrow, we share the loss of Mrs. Nathan and her family pray that they will have the strength to withstand it. Today we bid farewell to a remarkable man whose life was an unusual journey. We were all fortunate to have been, in some measure, a part of this unexpected odyssey. Farewell, Mr. Nathan. May you rest in peace.
State wreaths will now be laid by the Chief Mourner and Prime Minister.
Mr. Osif Ramanathan, son of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan, will now lay a wreath on behalf of the family.
A large part of Mr. Nathan's legacy will be his work with the less fortunate, his rapport with citizens and various communities, and his support of a diverse range of social causes. Chief Mourner and Mr. Nathan's son, Osith Ramanathan, presenting the first wreath.
The Prime Minister will now lay a wreath on behalf of the state.
The coffin bearer party removing the accoutrements, and soon they will begin folding the state flag.
Among the accoutrements includes a special award that was awarded to Mr. Nathan in 2013, the nation's highest award, the Order of Temasek, Darja Utama Temasek, First Class.
And the second award, Pingat Jasa Gemilang, Meritorious Service Medal. The flag and accoutrements will be handed over by the coffin bearer party commander, Lieutenant Colonel Chu Singh, Headquarters Medical Corps, to President Tony Tan.
President Tony Tan will now present the state flag and accoutrements to Chief Mourner and Mr. Nathan's son, Mr. Othith Ravanathan.
The presentation of the state flag to the family is the highest honor given by the government to a statesman.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the last post, followed by the observance of a minute of silence to pay our last respects to the late
military
Mr. S.
expert Hsien from the Singapore Armed Forces Military Band will now play the last post, which will signal the final farewell to Mr. S.R. Nathan. In a short while, the sounding of the rouse is a symbolic call back to duty after respects have been paid to the memory of the late Mr. S.R. Nathan.
Please be seated.
And with this, we end the live coverage of the state funeral service of Mr. S.R. Nathan.